Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to do a quick rundown of the Kerf Offset tool found in Lightburn. It can be confusing at times, especially if you have more than one line that you're working with as to what it's actually going to do. So I'm going to show you with a few examples of different options and how it affects them and how you can determine for yourself what it's going to do before you make the cut. Alright, so let's get into Lightburn and just jump right to it. So I have two polygons here in Lightburn, just on a single layer, and this is what I'm calling my reference image. Let me double click on the layer and show you something. What I did was I enabled perforation mode and I put them at a half a millimeter skip. That just gives it a way to differentiate this from the actual kerf offset that's taking place. This is how I'm suggesting you do it. Take and duplicate your layer that you're working with, call it a reference layer, and put a perforation mode onto it. That'll help you see it and be able to tell the difference when they go into the preview window. So here it is by itself in the preview window. You see the perforations. Nice representation of the cut. Now I have this layer, which is what I've labeled double cut, and I've done a 2 millimeter outward kerf offset on here. I mean, 2 millimeters is not a number you're going to use. I'm just using that number for ease of visibility in this tutorial. So now if I click on the preview, what you will see is we have our original perforated dashed line, and then our outward kerf offset goes outward here, but it goes inward here. Why is it doing that? Well, the outward motion, because it's a multi-shaped line, two shapes, it thinks what you're wanting is this center portion, and to go outward, it has to go out both directions. That's what's giving you your outward kerf offset. So if you were trying to do like an inlay, you would cut out this, and then your kerf offset that goes in between there would have to be a little bit larger to make up for the kerf. But if you'll notice on the outward offset, the corners are rounded. They're not pointy like the original image. And that has something to do with how the algorithm figures it. I don't understand that, but that's just how it works. So that's something you'll have to be aware of. It's not on a very small kerf offset, it's not really noticeable. This is 2 millimeters, so it's quite a bit noticeable. Now let's go back in here. Let's turn off that layer. And I'm going to turn on this layer, which is just a single line. This is on the outer layer. It's a single outer line, and again, this has a 2 millimeter outward offset. We're going to click on that, and preview comes up, and you see now we only have a single line, and it's definitely pointing outward, which is exactly what you expect to do. You know, like I say, the difference is when you're working with the entire layer of both lines, it's making the entire layer bigger or smaller. When you're working with just a single line, it's going outward or inward, just like just like you would expect it to do. Now, one other thing I need to bring up is for kerf offset to work, it has to be a closed shape. With just a single straight line, it does not work at all. In fact, let me show you that real quick here. And then I'm going to duplicate that. I select it first, duplicate it, and put it on black. So now if we turn on the preview, you'll see we do not have any differentiation off the original line. It's buried back in there. In fact, I'll prove that to you by making this guy shorter. So the black one's quite a bit shorter than the red. We'll bring it back up, and you'll see the perforated line sticking out the ends. So, and the main reason behind that is it doesn't know which direction to go. It's a straight line. It's not a closed shape, because if you're going, there's no inward or outward to an open shape. It doesn't know what's inside and what's outside. So let's get rid of that. Now, same thing. We're going to use our same reference, which is just our 2 lines, and then I'm going to bring up a duplicate of this with inward kerf offset. And you see now it's actually going the opposite direction from what it did with the outward kerf offset. It's moving it towards the center instead of away from, away from the shape. It's moving into the shape, making it smaller, making this part smaller. And now you see, because it's the curved corners, because it's moving, it's making larger than the actual shape. So we'll turn that one off, and here we're going to do a single line, which that's just this one here, and that's going to go inward. It'll end up down here. See, we still got our outer shape, our reference shape, and the single line is going inward. So as you work with these shapes and work with your kerf offset, it's easy to get messed up and think it's going to do one thing when it's actually doing just the opposite. So that's why I recommend that you do something like this with a reference image that you can compare and see exactly what's going to happen. In fact, what I'll do right now is I'm going to go turn that back on, and let's make this a more realistic kerf offset. We're going to go minus 0.1. That's not an unusual kerf offset. Let's see how that looks. So it's hard to see, but you can zoom in into preview, and with the zoom in, you can see what it's going to do. You know, I just used the 0.2 for visual aid in this video, but in a realistic situation, you can always zoom in and see exactly what it's going to do. So let's turn that one back off, and now let's really blow your mind. I'm going to do a triple. Going to have 3 lines, same shape 3 times, and this is our reference with the dashed lines, and this one here is going to be an outward offset of 2 millimeter. So what do you think is going to happen? Is it going to go here, and then what's it do with the middle one? Let's find out. Okay, the outer line did exactly what you thought it would do, made it bigger, but the inner line went the same direction. So what happened here was it took the outer line and went out, took the next line and went in, making this shape larger. But then down here, when it gets to the third line, it comes back in. It's acting almost like it does when you're looking at fill layers on closed shapes, where you start with, you know, the first line it comes to, it fills everything from there on in, and then the next line it inverts and that's not unfilled. Then the next line it fills again. This is acting basically the same way in my mind. Whether that's how they wrote the algorithm, I do not know, but it has no way of knowing what you want to do with a shape like this as far as kerf offsets. It doesn't know that you're actually wanting to offset these two, because you're cutting, this is a cut layer, so it's cutting all 3 lines. So that's the best way I can tell you how to figure out how to tell what a kerf offset's going to do for you in your situation. Duplicate your shape for a reference, put it on its own layer, put it to perforation mode, that way you can distinguish it from what's happening with the kerf offset. Make your kerf offset and look at the preview, and you see if it goes inward, outward, both directions in, both directions out, and then you'll at least know what it's going to do for you. Hope I was able to help you through this video. Give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and there's more tips and tricks coming up. There's some Amazon affiliate links down below that would really help me out if you click on those before you buy something. They don't cost you any extra, but I'd appreciate it if you did that. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.